All right. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening or good whichever time of the day you seem to be watching this. This week we're going to work on portraiture. And portraiture means the art of drawing faces. Specifically, we want to work on drawing faces in proportion, which means the size and the shape and the location of all of the features of your face will make sense. They will relate to each other correctly. The nose will be the correct size in relationship to the eyes, etc. So we're going to work on this basic skill, and your sketchbook assignment right now will just be to practice drawing a general face in proportion. And then the next step will be to bust out a mirror and try to draw your face to look a little bit more like you. So let's talk about general proportions. Get out a fresh sheet of paper on your sketchbook. You might need a ruler. If you would like to use a ruler, you don't have to. You can just kind of sketch loose lines. Have a good eraser handy. I would recommend using your ebony pencil, but a regular pencil will work. So one thing you're going to start with is a head. It's a good place to start. And we're going to draw a head that is like an oval shape. And notice I'm drawing pretty lightly. I'm going to draw a little bit darker so that you can see this pretty well. But you want to draw lightly. This is going to be erased later on. We're going to adjust the chin shape. We're going to adjust up here to add hair and ears and all of that. So this is basically a place to start. An oval is usually pretty good. Everybody has a slightly different face shape, so we'll talk about making that more specific later. And because we're going to adjust and refine as we go, don't worry about making everything perfect right off the bat. All right, now I'm going to divide this in half. If I wanted to, I could use a ruler to draw a light line down the center of the face. This is the line of symmetry that divides your face in half so that you have pretty much the same thing happening on the left as you do on the right. So you're going to have eyebrows on either side of this line of symmetry, eyes on either side, nostrils, the sides of your mouth, ears, etc. So this divides your face vertically. And then we're also going to divide about right in the middle. So you notice it's about the same distance from the top of my oval as from the bottom of my oval. We're going to be using a lot of approximate dimensions while we do this. And that gives us a little flexibility. Everybody's eyes, nose, and mouth and ears are generally going to have the same proportions in relation to each other, the same about size in relation to each other and placement, but there are tiny little nuances that will be different. So trying to make this really geometrically perfect is a little pointless at times. So I'm going to divide that in half. Now, a lot of times people think in the middle of the face would be the nose. So this might be the nose line, but in fact, this is the eye line from the very top of your head to the chin. If you divide that in half, you get your eyes. So if you actually could, in the mirror, you could kind of measure that out. You could like put your head, your finger at the top of your head, and your finger at your eye line. And then if you move it down, you'll notice that it's the same to the chin. So that's your eye line. About halfway down from the eye line to the chin, it's going to be your nose line. This is going to be where the bottom of your nose lands. And then you can make another line just not quite halfway. Usually it's a little closer than halfway. So maybe like a little more than a third of the way down. But you can kind of use your own judgment. You want to make another line dividing that bottom space. This is going to be your mouth. So we've got nose and we've got mouth. Okay, so let's talk about eyes first. Your eyes are the same distance from corner to corner as they are in between the two eyes. So interior corners of your eyes are about one eye length apart. And if you really just look at this line as a whole, you can divide it into 5. So I'm going to just make a mark and make another mark over here. And what I should have is I should have a distance that is about the same between each mark. Basically, I'm dividing my line into 5 shapes. So for mine, if my face is about 5.5 inches tall, Each distance is about 3/4 of an inch for me. And it's approximate. Again, it's not precise, but if you'll notice, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're about the same distance. To draw eyes, start with just a slight curved shape that goes corner to corner. And notice I'm not drawing this really huge. A lot of times when we draw eyes, the tendency is to draw eyes like this, like they're target symbols. This is like a cartoon eye. Eyes are not round. Eyeballs are round, but usually you have an eyelid covering the top of your eyeball and then another piece of skin covering the bottom of your eyeball. This prevents your eye from falling out of your head. It's really handy. So what you actually see of the eye is not a circle, even though your eyeball might be circular. So a little bit of a line there, and then a little bit of a line there. Now, if you want to be more advanced about it, look in a mirror and look at your actual face shape. This might be a little bit more rounded. There's a lot of different eye shapes. We'll talk about that specifically later. The next thing is the colored part of your eye, the iris and the pupil. You want to make sure that that circle, that dark part of your eye, like your eyes might be blue or brown or green, whatever color your eye is, that colored part disappears underneath the top lid and the bottom lid. So you're making a circle that disappears underneath those, and then in the center, you can put that dark circle for the pupil. And just if you want to match your own eyes, maybe fill in the iris with a shade that matches. So if you have light eyes, you might do that. If I have darker eyes, I might go over it a couple times. And that fills out that iris color for now. I would make sure to fill that in so that you don't creep yourself out with your dead eyes. So you want to make sure that to add a little color there. The next thing I'm going to do is right on top of that eye, I'm going to draw a line that is the eyelid crease above your eye. This helps kind of set your eye in place. That eyelid, when it retracts open, it folds back into this crease of your skin. Otherwise, you'd have all this skin sticking out. So you want to create that eyelid crease. It's not your eyebrow. We haven't gotten to the eyebrows yet. Your eyebrow is a little further up, but you usually do see some kind of eyelid crease, and that's going to vary of what that looks like from person to person. And then we're going to leave out eyelashes for now. I'll talk about that later, but a lot of times we don't want to overdo our eyelashes. Sometimes people tend to draw them looking a little spidery, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to ease off of eyelashes for now. And you can go ahead and erase those guidelines. And you got some eyes in place. All right, noses. So we made this nose line here, and this is where our nose is going to land. A good rule of thumb is that between the pupils and your the bottom middle of your nose is going to make like an equilateral triangle. So if I do that, that actually kind of looks a little short. Like these lines don't look the same. So I'm going to make this a little bit lower. It looks a little bit like a fox right now, but so I'm going to lower my nose line. I think I drew my nose line a little high, but they should form like an equilateral triangle from pupil to bottom of nose. So you can use that as a guide to know that you've got the bottom of your nose in the right spot. All right, now I'm going to erase those guidelines. A lot of erasing as we go. And to understand how wide your nose is down here, all you have to do is draw a little line straight down from the inside corner of each eye. Straight down from the inside corner of each eye. And this is going to be the width of the bottom of your nose right here. All these markings really are making it look kind of funny, but it's okay. This is practice. So I'm going to erase some of these lines here. And to draw a nose, I'm going to show you a quick trick. First, draw a big circle that doesn't quite fill. Leave a little space on either side. Doesn't quite fill that space, but draw a big circle where the bottom is on that point that we determined. Then, still staying right above that line, I'm going to draw two more small circles, about half the size as the first. Then what I do, I'm going to erase that line. And what I'm left with is nostril, nostril, and the bottom. Now this is a little bubbly. You might have a different shape to your nose. I'm going to smooth that line out a little bit. And there I go. I got a little smooth. Now you can look in your mirror and kind of figure out, do you have like more of a straight nostril like that? Do you have more of a rounded nostril? Like this. Can kind of decide that. Now the other thing is the rest of your nose is really just shading. There's not going to be any strong lines here. But from this center, the center ball of your nose, there's usually a shadow on what maybe one side might be a little darker. And that's going to curve up inside the eye. And if you kind of swing it up, you get your eyebrow line. So I'm going to do that on both sides. You might have like a wider nose. So you might have like a nose that curves in a little bit more. It may get kind of skinnier there at the bridge. It may be more of a straight nose. Kind of have to look at and see, what does your nose look like? But this starts not on the very outside of your nose, but on the outside of that middle center ball of the nose. If you go up, kind of curve in towards the eye bridge, bridge of the eye or bridge of the nose, right in between the eyes, then you curve up, you're going to get your eyebrow line. So then I can go in and scribble in an eyebrow. And notice I'm kind of slanting. I'm going with the line because if you look at the hairs of your eyebrows, they go along that line. They work in the direction that the line is heading away from the center of the face. Now, again, that might not be my eyebrow shape. That's just a sort of a placeholder for now. And usually with these shadow lines on the side of the nose, we probably want one side to be a little bit darker, one side to be a little bit lighter. And we might edit that shape of the nose a little bit later. All right, now, because I drew my nose a little high, I'm going to move my mouth line down just a little bit lower. You want to look at it and say, does that make sense? Does this look like this is where my mouth would be? If it's, you have to use your own judgment and your own knowledge of faces, which you have a pretty good, strong knowledge of faces. If I drew my mouth line down here, you would know that was too low. If I drew my mouth line right up here, you would know that is too high because you stare at other people's faces all the time, whether it's in movies and television more often these days, or whether it's looking at your friends, your family. You see faces all the time, so we already have an idea of what faces look like. So this is going to be our lip line. And to figure out how wide that should be, if I'm crying tears of joy from my pupils, and I go straight down from the center of my pupil, I'm going to get the outside corners of my lip line. And I might even look at what my lip line looks like. Does it go a little bit up? This is the line in between the upper lip and the lower lip. So where my two lips meet, what does that line look like? Does it have a little curvature to it? I'm going to erase those tears. And now, I don't want to outline those lips. If I am drawing lips and I outline, people have a tendency to do that, which is fine in cartoons, but this heavy outline doesn't really exist. If you look at your lips in a mirror, what you really see is you see a value that's darker than the rest of your skin surrounding it. Might be just like one bit darker. It might be a whole lot darker. And it just kind of ends. Now there might be a little bit of a shadow underneath the center of the bottom lip, but what you don't see here is a big heavy outline. You just see a value that's darker than your skin tone, and it ends. So take a look at the value of your lip and take a look at the value of your skin. Which one's darker? How much darker is the darker value than the lighter value? Also, you want to look at your lip shape. You might have a really full lip. Looks like my video froze up there for a little bit, so I'm just going to keep talking. There we go. You might have a really full lip that's really rounded, or you might have a thinner lip that's a little closer to that center line. But what you probably don't have is a lip that starts right at the end. If you start at that corner and you just zoom right out from the corner, it's going to look a little bit silly. Notice right here, I start kind of gradually from that corner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at, it looks like I have a little bit extra line there at the corner. I'm going to just draw the shape of my upper lip. I'm giving a little dip in the middle, and I'm just kind of filling it in lightly with a value. I might edit that a little bit later and kind of fuss with that shape. And then I'm going to draw a value for my lower lip. A lot of times it kind of flattens out at the bottom. It's like a semicircle, but it's a little flat towards the bottom. And notice that those shapes kind of taper into that lip line instead of bowing all the way out like that. That looks a little silly and a little bit too wide. So I'm gonna erase back in there. So just go back in. My lip lines erasing have turned a little bit into the Joker. Take a look at those corners of the mouth and how much further out they are than the upper and the lower lip. And if you have a little bit of a shadow here underneath your bottom lip, go ahead and draw that in. There might be kind of a triangular like shadow. There might not be. Okay, now I've got my face in proportion. Doesn't necessarily look like my face yet, but I'm really just kind of trying to draw a generic face that makes sense. Let's talk about ears. If you put your fingers at the top of your ear and the bottom of your ear, you will notice that if you move in towards the center of your face, the top of your ear is on the same line as your eye, and the bottom of your ear is usually on the same line as like where your mustache would be, if you have a mustache. So what I'm going to do for those ears, I'm going to draw a big round circle. Wait a minute, that looks dumb. We are not going to draw a big round circle. That's what your ear looks like from the side. I'm going to draw a flat shape. I'm going to draw a flat shape that has a little C curve at the top and the bottom. That even still looks a little bit silly. But what we don't have yet is hair. We're going to add more hair up here so that those ears are either partially hidden or will adjust the shape. You might have a little bit of a curve to your ear. But basically what you have is like a C shape. And it may be flatter against your head and it may stick out more. You kind of have to look at that and see. Everyone's is a little bit different. Next step before we get to hair, we're going to draw a neck. Now, a lot of times people want to draw a neck like this, but this little skinny twig will not support the weight of a real head. So we want to actually draw a neck that is much wider. And if you look at, let's see, I'm going to extend my lip line here. Where that lip line meets the side of the face, that's about where your jaw is. I'm going to draw a straight line down. You can practice this. Put your fingers at the corners of your lips, go straight out and around the jaw, and you'll find there's your neck. So I'm going to draw just an inch or two. Necks are usually a lot shorter and a lot wider than we think that they are. And then you have your shoulders branching straight out. And your shoulders, there's that bell. You guys miss it. Shoulders, sometimes people want to do this and just round off those shoulders, but obviously those shoulders are too short. On a drawing this size, my shoulders are going to go off the page. They might just start rounding out. And all right, so we're not going to talk about this right now. We're not going to talk about clothes and things quite yet. We'll assume that this drawing is wearing clothes, but I'm going to look at hair now. So halfway between the eye, this eye line that I have, and the top of my head, that's where your hairline usually is. Now you have to look, is your forehead a little bit higher? Your hairline might be there. If it's a little bit lower, it might be a little bit lower. You gotta make a judgment. It's going to be somewhere though in between the top of the head and the eye line. It's usually somewhere in that middle space. And that hairline is going to go straight across, curving down a little bit. And then on the sides, it's going to curve down to where the top of the ears start. So right about there. Okay. So that's my hairline. Now my hair is not here. This is not my hair. This is my scalp. And that's not even totally accurate because it was just my beginning oval. My hair comes out from the scalp and creates extra dimension and volume. So let's say if you have like really thick hair, your hair might be more like this. And if you have like bangs or something, you might have basically like a series of lines coming straight down like that. If you don't, you might have a series of lines moving upwards and maybe curving from that hairline and moving away. Hair is a series of lines. You just have to figure out where are those lines going, but don't underestimate how much space hair really takes up. So I'm going to go away from the bang idea. I'm going to commit to hair curving away from the hairline. Okay, and you might have long hair, you might have short hair. You have to kind of look and see what is your hair doing. Let's say I have short hair. It's less for me to draw right now. So look, where is the hair peeking out from behind your ear? Even if it's light, you probably could shade it in pretty dark. Do you see any hair peeking out from your ear? Do you see any hair in front of your ear? You want to draw that. And then if you want to draw some of the shadows in your ears, you can draw. There's usually some shadows in there too. Last thing I'm going to work on is face shape. So let's say you have more of a square jaw. You might have a jaw that looks more like that. You might have more of a pointy chin. You know, you might have like more of an oval chin. You have to look at that face shape. What is your face shape doing right here? So as you're working, you should be looking at a mirror or some kind of reference. I know that my face shape kind of goes down, curves down in the middle, and then it curves away like that. In fact, I think my jaws kind of stick out a little bit further, so it looks a little bit more like that. This is kind of an exaggerated version of my own face shape, but I'm not precisely drawing myself here. Okay. But look at your face shape and figure out how can I change that face shape. So this is sort of drawing 101. I'm going to attach some handouts that show you that basic. You start with the circle, divide it in half for symmetry, divide it in half for eyes, divide that in about half for the bottom of your nose. That bottom space is divided into like maybe a third or a half for the mouth. And then your ears are going to be about the same distance as eye height to mustache line height. And then the next step would be to start refining. Look at the shape of your eyebrows. Adjust your eyebrows. If you have a little bit of eyelashes showing, they're probably just a very tiny little detail. I'm just kind of drawing like a squiggle line along those lines. I'm not really drawing very, very broad eyelashes. This actually looks like a friend of mine, which is interesting. It'll be interesting also to see what your general portrait looks like, because a lot of times people in our lives just kind of creep onto the page without us even knowing. And that's because we spend a lot of time looking at faces. And so a lot of times those faces sort of get into our psyche. All right. So, you know, adding details. Make sure to draw your hair filling in the sides of your neck as if your hair is long. You know, it might be kind of longer. You can shade in. So your sketch assignment is to practice drawing a face in facial proportions and then kind of play around. If you want some more videos besides this one to help you out, go to YouTube and just Google or just type in search in the search bar drawing a portrait. You will see about 1 million videos. They're just YouTube is filled with great tutorials. This is going to be it for us for now. If you're feeling really nervous about not having any clothes on here, can draw yourself a little line just to kind of give yourself the indication that you have clothes on. Dress code appropriate. All right. And we have a face. All right. So give it a shot. I'd like to see what you have. Make sure to take a photo of your sketchbook page and upload that for your facial proportions sketch. Okay. Thanks.